and Duo was trying on her wedding dress. Looking at herself in the mirror, she smiled happily. The worker said it would be better if her husband was there. And Duo didn't get mad when she heard that. Instead, she explained things to her husband. But what she didn't know was that her husband was sleeping soundly with his mistress, Li Wei, in a hotel. Li Wei saw Qin Lang's phone, a selfie of Nduo. Then, she took a picture of Qin Lang with lipstick on his face and him sleeping soundly and sent it to Nduo. She immediately sent a message with the location. Nduo ran angrily to the hotel. Seeing clothes scattered on the floor, she reached out and hit Li Wei. Qin Lang saw this and protected Li Wei. Then Nduo angrily slapped Qin Lang. Li Wei pretended to be pitiful. Qin Lang felt even more heartbroken, blaming Nduo for being a shrew. Nduo was furious. She took off her diamond ring and threw it away. She threw all their clothes down the stairs. The two of them, embarrassed, left the hotel wrapped in bath towels. Nduo took a lot of pictures. Nduo then learned that the wedding hotel she booked wasn't canceled. They were going ahead with the wedding, but the bride had been changed from her to Li Wei. Her best friend heard her talking about getting revenge on the jerk with Nduo on Li Wei's wedding day. Nduo confidently appeared in the bride's place. Qin Lang's mother was also pretty happy with Li Wei. She thought Li Wei was better than Nduo. Today, Qin Lang's uncle, the head of the Qi family, Qin Qi, would be attending the wedding. Qin's mother hoped that Qin Lang could play his part well and get his uncle's approval. The wedding started. Li Wei's father walked her down the aisle toward Qin Lang. Qin Lao looked at Li Wei, a smile on his face, waiting for his bride. Just then, Nduo, also wearing a white wedding dress, appeared at the wedding. Qin's mother saw Nduo and furiously tried to shoo her away. Nduo threw the pictures of Qin Lang and Li Wei at the hotel, scattering them all over the place, and declared on the spot that she didn't want that jerk anymore, and she had found a better husband to marry. As soon as she finished speaking, Qin Qi walked in from outside. Nduo pulled Qin Qi aside and whispered to him to cooperate with her, but surprisingly, Qin Qi actually followed her lead. This made Qin Lang freeze on stage and caused a stir among the guests. Actually, before Nduo entered the venue, she received a call from her best friend. She specifically found someone to pretend to be Nduo's husband. Qin Qi appeared in front of her. Nduo mistakenly thought he was the person her best friend had hired. Then, Nduo specifically gave Qin Qi a lot of money and told him to act well. Although Qin Qi knew that Nduo had mistaken him for someone else, he was willing to accept the role in the wedding. He also loudly declared that he was Nduo's husband. Nduo suggested that if they were going to get married, they should just get married together. After all, no one would care. Unexpectedly, Qin Qi expressed his feelings. He even publicly asked Qin Lang to step aside. He wanted to marry Nduo alone. Since the ring wasn't prepared beforehand, Tan Qi looked at Qin Lang obediently and took the ring he was going to use to get married. Nduo proudly gave Li Wei a disdainful smile. Looking at the applause, congratulating Tan Qi and Nduo on their marriage, Nduo suddenly realized something was wrong and asked who Tan Qi was. Qin Qi reminded Nduo to play along. The officiant asked them to kiss. Nduo closed her eyes nervously. Tan Qi saw her tense and kissed her on the forehead. After Tan Qi and Nduo got married, only Tan Qi dared to marry Li Wei. Since there was no ring, it could only be replaced with a bracelet. Li Wei was very furious. The guests took turns congratulating Tan Qi. He yelled one line after another. Then Nduo realized that she had mistaken someone. She apologized to Tan Qi, but he wasn't bothered. Qin Lang congratulated Nduo on her marriage. He called her Duo Duo. Then a murderous glint appeared in Tan Qi's eyes, making Qin Lang tremble. He didn't dare ask for the ring back, and Nduo quickly ran out of the banquet hall. Tan Qi wasn't bothered either. On the contrary, he confidently looked at the crescent moon tattoo and smiled, happy to have met each other after all these years. At this time, the man Nduo hired had been waiting for a long time and came to ask Tan Qi where Nduo's wedding was. Tan Qi directly chased him away. Qin's mother thought something was very strange and kept sending people to follow her. She discovered that Tan Qi hadn't gone home with Nduo. Nduo went to the rented house and immediately guessed that they were a fake couple. The next day at work, Nduo saw her work, now under Li Wei's name. Nduo went to find Li Wei to ask what happened. Li Wei said Nduo was her assistant now. Li Wei also told Nduo that everything belonged to her now. Nduo completely ridiculed Li Wei. At this time, Li Wei pretended to drop her pen, wanting Nduo to pick it up. Nduo was very angry and threw the papers on the table. Li Wei mocked Duo and Qin Chi's fake marriage, and Duo was helpless. At this time, Qin Lang came to find Li Wei. Li Wei intentionally created a scene and said Duo hit her. Qin Lang asked Duo to apologize to Li Wei. Duo blamed Qin Lang for forgetting the past 7 years. He didn't know her well, but he felt that Duo's past strengths were now a disadvantage. Duo didn't explain. Then she played a recording. It was Li Wei mocking her, but Qin Lang still didn't believe it. Li Wei accused Duo of doing it on purpose. Qin Lang believed her, and Duo was speechless. They were truly a disgusting match made in heaven. Duo told her best friend about it. Her friend suggested she go to Qin Chi for help, but Duo felt that they had just met. How could she do that? She would handle it herself. She wrote a complaint accusing Li Wei of plagiarism, and Duo was about to leave the company. She was stopped by Qin Lang's mother and Li Wei. The complaint also reached Qin's mother, who warned Duo not to cling to Qin Lang and gave her some money. She gave Duo 2 million yuan, demanding that she stay away from Qin Lang. Duo took the card but said the amount was too small. She had many photos of Qin Lang and Li Wei that day, and she was considering posting them online when she was feeling down. Qin's mother was furious and ready to throw a teacup. Unexpectedly, Duo pressed Qin's mother's hand. A cup of water splashed on Qin's mother's face. She warned her not to think about ending this easily unless Li Wei publicly apologized for stealing her design draft. At that moment, Qin Chi heard from his secretary, Zhang Bao, that his wife was arrested. He rushed over. Even though he saw his mother's face covered in tea leaves, he still demanded that his mother and Li Wei apologize to Duo. Otherwise, he would kick them out of the Qin family. Li Wei had no choice but to take a cup of water and pour it over her own head. Then, Qin Chi warned them to stop bullying Duo. He also gave Duo his business card, so she could contact him later. He said that staying by his side could bring her many benefits. Then Qin Chi slowly approached her, and Duo suddenly ran away in fear. The next day, Duo's landlord suddenly asked her to move out immediately, and Duo was very confused. After inquiring, she found out that Li Wei had bought it, and Duo called Qin Lang to scold him for being ungrateful. Qin Lang had heard a different version from Li Wei. She said she was bullied, and Qin Lang misunderstood Duo. He also shown affection for Li Wei, thinking she was trying to get back with Li Wei and was intentionally causing trouble. Duo adjusted her mood and took a deep breath. She could see that Li Wei was determined to ruin her life, so she would strike back. The next day, Qin Lang took Li Wei to the company. Li Wei acted like a child and pretended to be weak. Qin Lang even protected Li Wei. As he arrived at the office, he saw that Duo had cleaned up Li Wei's office. There were still many documents on the desk. Qin Lang was very pleased, and he thought that Duo was taking the initiative to apologize. He joined their hands together and made peace. As Qin Lang left, Duo suddenly hit Li Wei. Then, Li Wei ran and cried, but this time Duo was not foolish. She cooperated with Li Wei's act and accused Li Wei of hitting her. She put lipstick on her face to pretend to be injured. Qin Lang also felt that Li Wei was too aggressive. At this time, Qin Chi heard that Duo had been hit. He yelled and rushed over, protecting Duo and leaving. Later, Duo wiped the lipstick off of Qin Chi's office. She also hoped that Qin Chi wouldn't intervene in her business. She could handle it. Qin Chi reminded Duo that her accusation of plagiarism against Li Wei was impossible to achieve. At this moment, the two of them made an agreement. Qin Chi promised to help her solve the design problem, and Duo also wanted to be his wife in name. In the conference room, Duo, relying on her understanding of the design draft, exposed Li Wei in public. Qin Lang did not dare to defend Li Wei, and Duo successfully returned. Qin Chi took Duo to meet his mother, coincidentally when Li Wei and Qin Lang were also there. While Qin Lang and Qin Chi were chatting, Li Wei wanted to push Duo into the water, but Duo dodged. Instead, the gift in Li Wei's hand fell into the water, and Duo took the opportunity to grab her again. As Li Wei stumbled, Li Wei told Duo that the gift was for Mrs. Qin. She is the Qin family's matriarch, and also the original owner of the house. Duo might be kicked out by Mrs. Qin because she hates girls who are not up to standard. Then, Li Wei accused Duo of being an immoral woman in front of Mrs. Qin, and said she threw the gift she had prepared for Mrs. Qin. Duo intentionally went to see Mrs. Qin. She deliberately endured her. She didn't come with the attitude of a successful person. She didn't expect that Mrs. Qin. When she saw the crescent moon behind Duo's ear, she immediately understood and laughed. She publicly acknowledged her as her daughter-in-law and made Li Wei and Qin Lang kneel down and drink tea in public. apologizing and respecting their elders. Ever since Mrs. Qin saw the crescent moon, she knew that Duo was the person Qin had been looking for years. As long as it was someone Qin loved, it was someone she liked. She had no reason to dislike her. That was why she would protect Duo everywhere. To give Duo her dignity and face, Li Wei was also punished for causing trouble and lying. Mrs. Qin couldn't wait to ask her secretary to sign her up for a class. She was eager to learn how to take care of her grandson. Today's events made Duo very addicted. Qin proposed to Duo, asking her to continue pretending to be his wife, but Duo immediately refused. After that, Duo was looking for a place to live. She stumbled upon a house for rent, with a monthly rent of 1,000 yen, a swimming pool. Duo loved it and signed the lease without even reading the contract. But she didn't know that Qin had been trying to get closer to Duo and rented her his mansion at a cheap price. Just as she happily moved in and was enjoying the backyard pool, Qin popped up from the water. He proudly greeted Duo. Duo scolded Qin for being sick, and Qin declared that he was the owner of the place and he had the right to live there. The contract was clear in black and white. Duo took it and read it carefully, discovering that she had been tricked. Just as she was about to argue, Qin showed Duo a wall covered with pictures of jewelry designed by Duo. Duo reluctantly agreed to stay. Later, Qin watched Duo fall asleep. On the table were pictures of her from her childhood. Qin stared at Duo, especially the crescent-shaped birthmark behind her ear, remembering what Duo said when he was a kid. Duo had said that the crescent shape behind her ear could shine and that from then on, Qin would never be afraid. Qin Lang then apologized to Duo, admitting that he had been deceived by Li Wei before. He also hoped to get Duo's forgiveness. He also gave Duo an apartment as a special gift, but she refused. Qin witnessed this scene, and his eyes blazed with anger after returning home. He gave Duo a bunch of keys to houses all over the country, but Duo refused them all, one by one. Qin didn't sleep all night, continuously thinking about Qin Lang's proposal to Duo that day, unable to rest. He made a phone call. He had a plan in mind. The next day, Duo went to work. She just learned that the company had a new leader and wondered who it was. At that moment, Qin arrived at the company. The employees felt an immediate chill when they saw Qin. Qin then promoted Duo to the position of designer, even though she had just arrived. He also suggested a dinner party to celebrate Duo's promotion. Every employee attended the celebration party for Duo's department. Duo quietly reminded Qin not to reveal their private relationship. Qin then purposely stood in front of everyone and deliberately declared their relationship was not normal. To avoid suspicion, Duo stuffed a piece of barbecue into Qin's mouth to liven up the atmosphere. Wang, the manager, tried to imitate others and show off his drinking skills, but accidentally spit out his drink. The scene was a little embarrassing at the barbecue party, Duo's colleagues discussed how she was trying to seduce Qin Lang, and now, seeing that Qin was rich, she was going to seduce him. Duo was angry and stood up to speak. By chance, Qin overheard, and he took the lead to put his arms around Duo, declaring that he was pursuing her. But Duo refused to give him a chance. She didn't want to talk and left. The two female employees realized they had wronged Duo and quickly apologized. Qin demanded that they both resign. Then, Qin demanded that Li Wei be transferred to the branch office in the suburbs. Li Wei begged Qin Lang not to send her away, but Qin Lang blamed Li Wei for always plotting against Duo. He regretted marrying Li Wei. At this time, Li Wei secretly went to the office and stole Duo's design drafts, wanting to take revenge on Duo. The next day, when Duo went to work, the necklace she designed was already on sale. Qin had given Duo the first necklace he had designed and put it on her. Duo was happy but thought it was against the rules. Qin said dictatorially, "I am the rule." But at that moment, Wang, the manager, came to report. The rival company launched a new necklace today, which was exactly the same as Duo's design. Now, the internet is filled with negative reviews about Duo. Qin demanded to remove all the negative comments, but Duo stopped him. She believed that she designed it herself and it couldn't be fake. She wanted to find proof, and Qin decided to go with her. She brought Qin back to her hometown, where she had drawn a design sketch 10 years ago. Back then, she won first place with a small red flower painting that was published in the local newspaper. The information could also be found on the internet. She believed that finding the sketch would prove her innocence. The design was inspired by a tree in the countryside. After her parents left, she grew up with her grandmother. When her grandma passed away, the tree was always with her. But she couldn't find the album in the room. And Duo remembered her best friend. She took Chin-Chi to find him. And Duo's best friend was happy to see her, put his arm around her, and asked her to be his girlfriend. To be honest, he had liked Duo since elementary school. He wouldn't give her the sketch unless she agreed. Chin-Chi saw him and, not letting Duo drink, took the initiative to grab the wine and drank bowl after bowl. He also announced that Duo was his wife. What he didn't expect was that Duo's best friend was actually joking with her. He already had a child. The old woman couldn't help but praise how good Duo's husband was. Duo had brought Chin-Chi to the tree when she was little. She talked about her own creation, comparing it to the sketch. She used to love coming here to play and draw this tree every day. Luckily, the tree was still there as proof. Chin-Chi suddenly hugged Duo. He hoped he could take care of Duo instead of this tree. Duo was about to refuse, but unexpectedly, Chin-Chi kissed her. Duo took Chin-Chi back to her house. She laid him on the bed and couldn't help but touch Chin-Chi's lips. He suddenly woke up and repeatedly justified himself by saying he was drunk. Chin-Chi secretly glanced at Duo's cute sleeping face and couldn't help but smile. Chin-Chi woke up in the middle of the night. He saw Duo sleeping on the sofa and went to a wall where her awards were displayed. He also remembered receiving a letter from Duo from abroad. Ever since her grandma passed away, a mysterious person had always been sponsoring her success. She also said she would study hard, and in the future, she would give back to the kind people who supported her, proving that her efforts were not in vain. That person happened to be Chin-Chi. He could always receive photos of her, and he had loved Duo from the first time he saw her. At the press conference the next day, the chairman's nephew of the rival company pretended to be a reporter and asked deceitful questions to mislead people. He accused Duo of plagiarism, and even her online award link couldn't be accessed. Everyone was even more suspicious of Duo. Everything seemed to point to her being wrong. Chin-Chi stood up to defend Duo, but the reporter accused them of having an inappropriate relationship. He said that Duo relied on Chin-Chi to climb to the position of designer. Chin-Chi was prepared and told the reporters that Duo was his wife. They were married, and he took out the 10-year-old newspaper. Although someone had hacked the website, they couldn't buy all the newspapers. At the same time, Chin-Chi exposed the reporter's true colors, and he left the scene in embarrassment. Duo was cleared of all charges and left in a hurry. Soon, the news spread and Duo's best friend saw it. He blamed Duo for keeping her relationship with Chin-Chi a secret. Duo had no choice but to tell him everything, and also explain her relationship with Chin-Chi, which was just a contractual one. Her best friend was curious and asked for detailed information. After hearing the whole story, he felt that Chin-Chi was in love with Duo. He asked Duo if she didn't have any feelings for Chin-Chi. Duo denied having any feelings for Chin-Chi, but at that moment, she received a message from Chin-Chi asking to meet. Duo couldn't help but smile. Her best friend teased her, saying that all women were obsessed with men. Chin Lang accidentally saw the chat history between Li Wei and the rival company on Li Wei's phone. At that moment, Chin Lang realized that Li Wei was behind all this. They were both furious and had a huge argument. He regretted blindly loving Li Wei and disappointing Duo. Because of that, Chin Lang proposed to divorce Li Wei. She then directed all her resentment toward Duo. Chin-Chi, following Wang, the secretary's instructions, prepared a special flower and ring. He wanted to formally propose to Duo. He hoped that Duo could confidently marry him. At this moment, Duo got dressed and went to meet Chin-Chi. She received a call from Chin Lang. Chin Lang hoped to have a pleasant conversation with Duo. He also blamed himself for not trusting Duo and wanted to apologize for Li Wei stealing her design drafts. But Duo refused to meet him, and Duo stopped her car on the side of the road. She wanted to get to Chin-Chi as soon as possible. Suddenly, a truck came speeding towards her. Fortunately, Chin Lang rushed over and pushed her out of the way. Chin Lang was seriously injured and fainted on the spot. She called an ambulance for him. When Chin Lang's mother learned that her son was badly injured and unconscious, she blamed Duo. As she and Chin-Chi were on their way back, she carefully considered it. She didn't think it was an accident. On the other hand, Li Wei told Chin Lang's mother that Duo had planned to harm Chin Lang. She even said that before Chin Lang's accident, his last call was to Duo. They started to slander Duo. When she heard this, Chin Lang's mother believed it. However, all of this was Li Wei's conspiracy. Initially, she wanted to kill Duo, but Chin Lang appeared on the road unexpectedly. Therefore, she had to blame Duo. To protect Duo, Qin Chi specifically hired 4 bodyguards. The day before, Duo was almost hit by a car, but fortunately, Qin Lang pushed her out of the way. This action saved her life. If not, Duo would be the one in the hospital now. After he asked his assistant to investigate, they discovered that the scene of the accident not only had a broken surveillance system, but the car involved in the accident was parked in a fixed location. No evidence could be found. This made Qin Chi even more certain that there was a mastermind behind this who wanted to harm his wife. Later, Duo received a call from Qin Lang's mother. She said that Qin Lang had woken up. When Duo arrived at the hospital, she found that Qin Lang had not woken up at all. She kept scolding Duo for being the mastermind behind this. Duo felt that there was a conspiracy, and she started to be careful at all times. But she didn't expect that Qin Lang's mother was not kind and wanted to kill Duo. At that moment, the assistant came in and told Qin Chi that the driver had been caught, but the driver confessed that he was hired by Duo. When Qin Lang's mother heard this, she immediately picked up a fruit knife from the ground and stabbed Duo. When Qin Chi saw this, he quickly protected Duo. Qin Chi was injured. And at that moment, Qin Lang, who was lying in bed, woke up. Duo, due to her experience, was spun around by many people. As a result, she was taken to the police station. Meanwhile, Li Wei hid in a corner. After witnessing Duo being arrested, she couldn't help but feel happy. It was because of Li Wei's illusions of her own intelligence and her habit of bragging about her cunning, and because she always told the truth. These words were heard by the police. They didn't need to investigate, and they prepared to arrest her immediately. So, when the truth was revealed by Li Wei, Qin Lang also woke up at the same time. He grabbed her hand. In the next second, Qin Chi and Duo appeared, and then had Li Wei arrested. The most cunning schemes still always involve a mistress, but no matter what, the truth was revealed. Duo was now bandaging Qin Chi's wounds. Qin Chi thought that they had been through a lot together, so he needed to treat her well. Then everyone thought that she got to the company through the back door. In the next second, they changed their attitude. The company publicly praised Duo. They said she was not only beautiful, but also had a kind heart, and especially a very good heart. They also said that she had a kind heart, especially a very good heart, especially the head of HR in the company. He was known as the fierce tiger in the company. He even stroked Duo's hand and patted her shoulder. It was almost like she was a princess here. Of course, the most surprising thing was that she was promoted from a regular designer to a top designer. That was because she had become the director's wife. That was why she was given such special treatment. At this time, Duo should accept Qin Chi. He saw her resistance, so he asked her to go on dates with him 3 times. If Duo still had no feelings for him after 3 dates, then Qin Chi would let go. She found this reasonable and agreed. On the other hand, Qin Lang gave Li Wei the divorce agreement. No matter how pitiful she pretended to be, Qin Lang would divorce her. Even her mother-in-law saw her. She couldn't help but slap Li Wei. But unexpectedly, Li Wei didn't want to get divorced. She made an impossible request. She asked for a promise from Duo. If she agreed, he would immediately have his first date with her. He asked his secretary to book a French restaurant and prepare a surprise for her. The day finally arrived, Duo went with Qin Chi to the pre-booked restaurant. Looking at the thick French on the menu, she felt a little confused. Qin Chi thought Duo was having trouble choosing a dish, so he took the menu and ordered for her. She didn't know what the dinner was. A woman came in with a violin, Duo didn't look well. Qin Chi frowned, thinking it wasn't sweet enough. He changed from the violin to magic, to dancing, Duo was speechless. She covered her face and just wanted to run away. It seemed that today was a failure. Qin Chi was a little dejected. He took Duo's hand and confessed his feelings. Although love couldn't be forced, he would try his best to make her love him. Touched by his sincere words, she gently patted Qin Chi's hand. The next day when she went to work, Duo learned from the manager that the design plagiarism lawsuit was still ongoing. She was eliminated from the jewelry competition. You only know what you've got when it's gone. Have you ever seen a boyfriend like this? Duo asked him to leave because after Qin Lang was discharged from the hospital, he came to Duo's office in a wheelchair. He had stolen Li Wei's design book and returned it to her. He hoped it would help her fight the design plagiarism lawsuit. As if he had made up his mind, he told Duo that if one day Qin Chi mistreated her, he would always be here waiting for her. Therefore, he was chased away by Duo. He silently folded the wheelchair and left. At this time, Qin Chi called Duo to his office. He asked Duo to go somewhere with him. Although Duo had her own fears, when she saw his sincerity, she agreed to go somewhere with him. At this point, and Duo only learned that it was a charity auction. Qin had arrived at the organizer's house before, leaving Duo here alone to look at jewelry. Suddenly, a mocking voice came from behind her. It was the wife of her brother-in-law, who was lower in status than Qin. She had heard that Qin used to like a girl, loved her very much, and even wanted to marry her. And Duo was very upset after hearing this, and directly retorted, telling her to take care of herself and not to worry. Seeing the middle-aged woman almost having a heart attack, and Duo didn't continue to fight back. Because the auction was about to begin, Qin took Duo to the auction. The starting price was only 5,000, and it could be auctioned off for tens of millions. Before the host announced that the auction was about to start, only then did Qin arrive late, sitting in the front row with Duo, and the middle-aged woman had already provoked Duo earlier. Sitting behind them, the auction started from millions of yuan, which surprised Duo. She saw the surprise on her face and showed a disdainful expression, saying she was a country bumpkin. However, Qin heard her words and glared at her fiercely, and she finally kept quiet. When she saw the final auction item, she was surprised to find that it was a pair of earrings that she designed herself. Qin had given them to the organizer. The starting price was only 5,000 and was being discussed by everyone. After everyone raised the price to 100,000 yuan, Qin directly bid with a sign, 10 million yuan. Everyone in the room gasped. After the final price was determined, they invited Qin to the stage. He took the earrings and told everyone that they contained his wife's hard work and dedication, and it wasn't easy. Qin hoped to use this 10 million yen to help poor children in rural areas, so they could change their fate and fulfill their dreams like Duo. After hearing these sincere words, she felt truly blessed. Those words earned him applause from everyone, and it also made Duo look at him with admiration. Then, Qin put the earrings on Duo, and their relationship deepened after the auction. Duo held Qin hand and walked toward the door. She subtly complained that he hadn't told her beforehand, but Qin didn't care about that. He intended to use the money for charity, but Duo was worried. Qin comforted her, and she listened to his soothing words. Duo was deeply moved. This was the first time someone had trusted her so much. The atmosphere gradually became hazy. Qin couldn't help but reach out and touch Duo's face. She drew her hand back, but she saw a crescent moon on his palm. Qin told her that it was in memory of someone very important to him. He could only get Duo's agreement. They went out to socialize. In the evening, Duo thought about the moon tattoo and suspected it was an old friend. Her heart was in turmoil. At this time, Duo was at the door. Seeing the gift Qin had given her, she went over to open it. It contained a dress and a greeting card. Qin asked her to stay at the hotel for a third date. The day had arrived. Qin was practicing what he wanted to say to Duo. Shu-Qi had prepared everything, just waiting for Qin to propose successfully. Suddenly, the hotel door opened and a girl walked in. But after Qin saw the girl's face, his expression changed instantly. The girl in the blue dress was Chengzi, who was having an affair with him. She threw herself into Qin arms and swore never to be separated from him. Duo, who was late, happened to see this scene. She questioned Qin about their relationship. Before Qin could answer, she told Duo that they were lovers. Duo was just a substitute after she went abroad. She even showed Duo the tattoo on her hand, the same crescent moon as on Qin's palm. Qin was trying to explain something to Duo. Chengzi suddenly went crazy, seeing her charge towards the table and grab a knife. He had to turn back to stop her. Chengzi suddenly turned around and clung to Qin's chest, and Duo immediately understood everything. She turned around and left the hotel. At this point, Qin chased after her, but he couldn't find her. Seeing her packing her bags to leave the house, his whole world seemed to collapse. He went nearly insane, searching for her everywhere. Since he still couldn't find her, Duo, sitting in the taxi, complained about Qin to her best friend, saying that if she loved Qin again, she would become a dog. Suddenly, she received a call from Qin's secretary. He had been in a car accident and was hospitalized. She rushed to the hospital. She saw doctors surrounding Qin in the hospital bed. His secretary told Duo that Qin hadn't eaten or drunk anything while searching for her. In the end, on his way back home, he had a car accident and fell into a coma. Qin, lying unconscious, was deeply moved. Everyone else had gone out, leaving Qin in Duo's care. She sat on the bed, sadly begging him to wake up. But no matter what she promised, Qin didn't wake up, and Duo was heartbroken. She was ready to warn him that if he didn't wake up, she would find another guy to love. Now Chin-Chi was afraid. He reached out his hand and grasped hers, and Duo was angry and amused. As long as he wasn't too bad, she could rest assured. At dusk, the secretary took Duo home to cook porridge. When she went back to the hospital, he praised Chin-Chi for his clever tactics. While chatting, Chin-Chi suddenly asked him about Cheng-Zi. The secretary lied to Cheng-Zi, saying that Chin-Chi was on a business trip. She wouldn't come and bother him for a while. Chin-Chi sighed because her parents were very kind to the Qin family, so he couldn't stay silent. How did she know about him and Duo? At this moment, the secretary looked at his watch. It was time, and Duo would be here soon. He hurriedly took Chin-Chi back to his room. Before leaving, he encouraged Chin-Chi, and Duo entered the room with a bowl of porridge in hand. But Chin-Chi's hands were bandaged. He couldn't eat by himself. Seeing his open mouth, and Duo couldn't speak. Then she told him to ask his lover to feed him. Chin-Chi quickly explained that he had never been with Cheng-Zi, but Duo still wanted to break up with him. She calmed down and left. Chin-Chi couldn't sit still anymore. He directly hugged her. His arm was flexible, and Duo immediately realized he was pretending. The atmosphere became a bit awkward. She stepped out of the room without looking back. Worried, Chin-Chi chased after her, but he couldn't find her. Suddenly, the entire hospital plunged into darkness. It seemed like the power went out. Chin-Chi trembled all over. He sat on the floor, afraid and trembling. No one could have imagined that his weakness was fear of the dark. At this moment, in such stormy weather, he was panicking because of the power outage. He struggled to stand leaning against the door frame, but he accidentally fell, hitting his head hard on the medical cart. Just as the bottle on the cart full of equipment was about to fall on him, Duo rushed out to prevent the tragedy. Seeing Chin-Chi's tears, Duo thought about the past. It turned out that she was also a child. In the dark, scary hospital, she soothed his frightened heart. Duo also showed the little Chin-Chi the red crescent moon birthmark on her hand. She told him that she could shine no matter how dark it was. She would be with him like the moon. Seeing Duo, Chin-Chi finally felt comfortable expressing his emotions. He hugged Duo tightly. The next morning, Li Wei sat in the back seat of a luxury car. Cheng-Zi was sitting inside. Cheng-Zi hurriedly complained to her. She didn't understand why Chin-Chi was so indifferent to her. Li Wei handed Cheng-Zi the photo of Chin-Chi in the hospital, telling her that Duo was behind everything. At this point, Li Wei and Cheng-Zi were plotting a new scheme after Duo saved Chin-Chi. She chatted with him in the room every day. Chin-Chi was distressed because he was about to go abroad, Duo then took a pen from her bag and drew on his hand a crescent moon birthmark, just like hers. Chin-Chi was very moved. He didn't know how to repay her in the future. He would promise her that when he grew up, he would repay her. Ever since they parted ways, Chin-Chi had not erased that mark. He had quietly added to it. In the end, he simply found someone to get a tattoo. Cheng-Zi always imagined that Chin-Chi liked her. So, she got a similar tattoo to deceive herself. The misunderstanding was finally cleared up, Duo was secretly happy. It seemed that Cheng-Zi was a substitute, but Chin-Chi held her hand tightly. He said that no one in this world could replace her. At this point, as soon as he knew that Duo had entered university, he rushed back to the country. However, when he arrived at the school gate with a bouquet of flowers in hand, he accidentally discovered that she already had a boyfriend. Looking at her back as she drove away with Qin Lang, he could only hold back his tears and silently left. Later, he learned that Qin Lang was getting married, but he didn't want to go. At this moment, the secretary told him that Qin Lang's bride had changed. He calmed down and went straight to the wedding venue to see what happened, but Chin-Chi had no intention of telling Duo about all this. She didn't care. She reminded him not to forget the promise he made in the hospital. They became closer and closer. They were about to kiss. The secretary shouted that something had happened. He rushed in. The crucial moment was interrupted. Chin-Chi angrily wanted to kick him away, but he remained calm. He asked the secretary what had happened. It turned out that the photo of Chin-Chi and Cheng-Zi hugging had been reported by the media. This had affected the Qin group. Chin-Chi then announced to everyone that he was not actually getting married. At this time, Mrs. Qin was still angry. If the problem couldn't be solved within 3 days, the family head position would change. At this moment, Duo arrived at the company, surrounded by a group of reporters. Chin-Chi stepped in to help her get out. He announced to the reporters that he had lied to everyone. He had taken advantage of Duo. And from today onwards, he was resigning as chairman of the company. After that, Chin-Chi and Duo left the company, starting a new day for them. But everyone was just waiting for them to prove it by directly kissing. People around them were taking pictures with their cameras and cell phones. They went home. Unexpectedly, Chang Zi somehow snuck into Qin Chi's house, facing his harassment. Qin Chi finally made up his mind. He made it clear to her, holding in Duo's hand. He told Chang Zi that he had been thinking a lot recently. Marriage shouldn't be a childish game. It shouldn't be a transaction. He would only marry the woman he loved. That was in Duo. Even if he lost everything, he would stick to his choice. Chang Zi was also trying to get the crescent moon tattoo to prove their love, but this time Qin Chi wouldn't be swayed by her anymore. He hoped she wouldn't deceive herself anymore. Hearing this, Chang Zi finally broke down. She yelled and told the bodyguard to contact Chang Zi's doctor, but Duo refused. She stepped forward and hugged her. She cried and yelled to find Li Wei. The next day, Qin Lang and his mother arrived at the Qin family's main hall. The 3-day deadline agreed upon earlier had expired. It was time for the Qin family to elect a new head. Only Li Wei emerged from behind the screen. Mrs. Qin was slightly surprised to see her and asked why she was there. At this moment, Qin Chi and Duo and the others also appeared in front of Qin Lang. It turned out that after Li Wei was told everything by Chang Zi and explained everything, she gave Qin Chi a thick book. It was evidence of Mrs. Qin and Li Wei colluding with outsiders. Although everything had been confessed, Li Wei still harbored resentment. She had given so much and ended up receiving nothing. Qin Chi asked his secretary to call the police. He watched as his mother was dragged away by the bodyguards. Qin Lang wanted to beg Qin Chi to spare his mother. Qin Chi advised him to take some paths himself. After the crowd dispersed, Qin Chi praised Duo, thanking her for finding Li Wei. He had lured Mrs. Qin into the trap. Everything had been resolved smoothly. What should he reward her with? Qin Chi found it amusing. Later, they kissed sweetly. It was time for the design competition award ceremony. She and Qin Chi were looking forward to the audience and waiting for the host to announce the results of the competition. When the host announced the names of the winners and the names of their works, there was thunderous applause. It turned out that the champion of this competition was Duo. She stepped onto the stage and shared her creative inspiration, the darkness, the lonely boy's fear, and the love story with the girl with the moon. Duo shook the jewelry box in her hand, fulfilling Qin Chi's promise to her. In front of everyone, Qin Chi stepped onto the stage. They put rings on each other's fingers and kissed passionately on stage. The movie ends here. Thank you for watching. Please comment on your thoughts after watching. Subscribe to the channel to watch more great movies.